Hi guys, I'm going to do a 3 photo layout today. This one was inspired by a question on one of the Facebook groups or on somebody's timeline or something. I can't even remember who said it, but somebody was looking for layouts using 3 or more photos. That what I showed you just there was the Scraptastic sketch for today. Actually, I'm scrapbooking this on Thursday, which is Thanksgiving in the United States, but it's not here in Canada. And so I'm scrapbooking today, and it's also the day that the sketch comes out for the Scraptastic Kit Club. So I'm looking through this Shake It Up kit, and the Shake It Up kit has lots of beautiful warm tones that I think are going to work really well with the photos. The photos have a really warm tone to them, and I'll tell you a little bit about that later. But first I'm going to pick out some patterns that I think are going to coordinate and kind of go along with that background paper that I have picked out. And the background paper I picked was, you probably saw it there a few minutes ago, it's that beautiful feather paper by Webster's Pages. Did a last minute switch here. I was looking for the green paper and I couldn't find it anyways, and it turned out it was underneath of the star pattern paper that I had picked out. So what I'm doing here is I'm lining up my photos so that they look like a photo strip. And the way that I do that is by overlapping the white border on one side. So you'll get to see me do that. So instead of putting these side by side, I'm overlapping them so that there's only one strip of white between each photo. And that makes it look like it was a photo strip. These photos were printed at 2x4 on my Epson PictureMate Charm printer, and I manage all my photos in iPhoto. If you're looking for some help with printing different sized photos in iPhoto, I have a tutorial on my blog, but unfortunately I can't help you if you use anything other than iPhoto on a Mac, because I don't know how to do that because I don't have that kind of stuff. So check out my blog if you're interested in how I print my photos. I've received a lot of questions about that lately, so that's why I'm kind of popping that. I'll pop that link in on the information section for this video. So I'm using my Fiskars trimmer here. I do have 2 trimmers. This one is lighter and easier to bring over to my scrap table, so that's why sometimes I'm picking this one. And I'm just layering all of those photos, all of those papers, basically based on how they're layered in the sketch. I went away from the sketch a little bit. I turned it 90 degrees. I'm thinking about using this red paper somewhere, but I'm not going to. And now I'm thinking about what I'm going to cut the stars with, because the Scraptastic kit this month comes with this really cool star cut file, and I really want to use it, and so I'm thinking about what paper I'm going to use, and I've decided to use this yellowy colored ledger paper for that. And then I thought about running a horizontal piece like this, but I really don't like it. That paper is quite a bit more cool. The background paper is a cool blue, or I mean a cool gray instead of a warmer gray, and so I'm not going to use that at all because it just stands out too much on this layout. So there's the cut file. I just print the cut files onto a piece of photo paper at the beginning of the month so I can remember what options I have. As I mentioned, I don't like to go have my kits all over the place, so this allows me to keep the cut file right with the kit without having to decide ahead of time how I'm going to cut it. So I'm just going to load this into my Cameo, which is right beside my computer center here, which is it's basically just opposite where I was just sitting. So I had to just kind of turn myself around, and I'm right here. So this is actually going to take quite a while to cut, and so I'm going to speed this up a little bit more than the rest of the video. So while that cuts, I'll talk a little bit about the photos, which have an unusual yellow tone to them. And I decided not to edit out that yellow tone because that's actually what it looked like in that room. So it was a giant room that was not lit by artificial light. It was just lit from the windows. And it's at Citadel Hill, which is a fortress that you can go to. It's sort of like a museum type of thing where you can walk around outside and go inside of the buildings. And so we were at the Victorian Christmas celebration there, which basically just gives you a chance to learn about what life was like during that era and what it was like to celebrate Christmas then. And so I wanted to keep the photos true to the experience, and so I decided not to edit them. And we spent quite a lot of time in that giant craft room making crafts. Both of our kids made several crafts, and Marcel made something, and it was really fun. So I wanted to scrapbook about it. So I just used that. That was a Cricut scraper tool that I don't have a Cricut. I sold my Cricut when I got my Cameo, but I still kept the utensils because they work exactly the same as the Silhouette ones. So I just kind of scraped everything over to the side so that I could clear my mat pretty easily. I love using that tool for that. And then I just used my paper piercer there to pierce through all of the last remaining bits that stuck to the die cut piece. And I'm thinking about how I'm going to layer this here. It took quite a while to kind of play around with it and line it up and think about what it looked like and whether I was going to use it, because originally when I cut it, I had planned to cut it into pieces and stick little pieces of it out from between the layers, and so the idea of keeping it whole was different than my original idea, so I just wanted to kind of make sure I wanted to do that. Now here I had this idea that this might look cool and a little bit more detailed if I made it look like they were stars that I had drawn and then cut around. And so in order to do that, I would have to kind of draw over some of these stars. I wanted to test out what that would look like whether it would be too busy. So I decided to outline not outline, but I guess inline some of the stars that are in the middle, because I knew that if I didn't like the look, I could just cover it up. And sure enough, I didn't like the look, so I decided not to do that. I just pulled out my Stampin' Up! Grid paper to do that in case I went off. I didn't want to have any stray marks on the papers I'm using. So now I'm using my ATG and I'm just curling up the edges of this just so that it would have a bit more interest and you can see some shadows and that sort of thing on the layout. And so that text paper, the very back paper that has some text that's highlighted on it, that is from Crepe Paper. It's from the Open Book collection. The star paper that's right over top of that is from We Are Memory Keepers. It's from the Shine collection. The green paper that I matted my photo strip on is the B side of that same We Are Memory Keepers Shine paper. And I cut the die cut star piece out of a piece of crepe paper from the Open Book collection. So now I'm just having a look at the embellishments that come in the kit. So I've pulled out my trays here, and I want to use one of these Maggie Holmes tags because they're fancy. They're really kind of nicely decorated, and so I want to use them. But I'm going to layer it with a few other things. So I pulled out that flare badge from Ormolu and a couple of pieces of wood veneer. There's a wood veneer medallion below it and then a wood veneer feather on top. And I'm just layering some embellishments all together here to come up with something that's an interesting little cluster of embellishments here in the bottom right hand corner. The sketch calls for a large embellishment there, so that's what I'm just going to stick to the sketch for the most part for this one, although I did turn it on its side. And I'm doing a few other different things, like these are some of the print and cut files that came with the kit, those tabs that are running along the left side of the photos. I just stuck them in there. It says first, second, and third, so since I have 3 photos, I thought it was a good opportunity to use those tags. I've pulled out a couple of other embellishments here, some sticker sheets that came in the kit. The puffy stickers are from Gossamer Blue, and then that big sheet of stickers is from Maggie Holmes. And I'm just referring to the sketch, and I'm putting that hashtag do your thing black print and cut file. The reason I'm putting that there is because I know I'm going to use those black Maggie Holmes letter stickers over on the right side of the layout, so that will provide some balance. So now I'm just going to glue these pieces together now that I've decided that I do in fact like them that way. So I just used my ATG and it just went in the wrong place. It didn't go directly down the center, it went over to the side. So I really don't like glue to be showing on my embellishment clusters, so I just spent a bit of time moving that glue over, and I had to end up cutting a string of it because I couldn't get it to move. But once I cut it, I snipped it with my scissors and it moved perfectly. So that pink circle that has some printing on it is one of the print and cut files from Scraptastic this month. I experimented with the idea of turning that medallion over so that it looks kind of like a craft doily type of thing, but I decided not to. I'm going to change the color of it though, because I don't like the look of wood on wood, and the feather wood veneer piece was overlapping onto the medallion, and as I said, I don't like wood on wood, so I decided to change the color of it using my Whisper White ink pad, which is a pigment ink from Stampin' Up. It's the only pigment ink that I have. It might be the only one that they sell nowadays. Back in the day, they used to sell all of their colors in both pigment and they call it craft. Their pigment inks are called craft, but they used to sell them in all of their colors in craft ink, but now they don't. So anyways, I did use my heat gun to dry that a little bit. It's still not entirely dry. The thing about pigment ink is it does take a very, very, very long time to dry, and so it's still not dry, and I'm getting ink on my fingers every time I touch it. So I have a baby wipe nearby that I'm just keeping on hand for cleaning up my fingers. I attached it using my tiny attacher stapler, and that allows it to not be glued all the way down. And I didn't want to use wet glue on it because it would just take too long to dry. So now I'm finally committing to laying all of these pieces down. So I glued it down with my ATG. And now I'm just going to spend a few minutes lifting some of the edges. Now that I'm finished with my layers, I know which things I can lift and which things will remain flat. And I'm going to lift pretty much every corner and edge that is showing, just because I really love the look of the shadows, especially where I didn't do any outlining on this. And the colors are so soft, and that background paper with the feathers on it is so soft and beautiful. I just really want to accentuate that by adding lots and lots of very subtle shadows. So I'm grabbing a piece of wax paper. I keep a roll of wax paper in my craft room, and I'm going to use these stickers that come in the kit. They're called Maple, and they're thickers, and I'm going to spell out Victorian Christmas. And this is a time when my wax paper actually fails me, because I'm going to spell them all out and put them, and it looks like they're going to fit, and then I must have changed where I put it. When I did put them down on the paper, they no longer fit, so I had to do this twice. And so I just cut it out so that I could move it around and figure out where it's going to go without having this huge piece of wax paper attached to it. And now I'm going to spell out Christmas with these black letters. And so this is what I was talking about how I had that black die cut over to the left, because I knew I would put the word Christmas in black right from the beginning. So these Maggie Holmes letter stickers, they come off the sheet really, really well and easily, but they're not the stickiest stickers in the world. So you see how they're shifting around? I mean, they're on wax paper, so they're not going to stick to wax paper, but even on the paper, they're pretty tricky because they do shift around a lot. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to make my line here to line up my title. So I started by lining up my 12 by 12 background paper on my grid map. And then I grabbed my ruler, and I'm just running my ruler right along one of the lines. So if it lines up, then I know that it will be a perpendicular horizontal line on my layout. There I am getting rid of some of that ink again. So now this is where I should have started that V a little bit over to the left. I didn't check that on my wax paper before I started sticking them down. So I'm going to go quite a bit down this road before I'm going to realize that the N at the end is not going to fit on the piece of paper. So the other tip I have for you when it comes to lining up your letters and using a faint pencil line to do so, besides using the ruler and using your grid mat, if you have one, as a guide to make sure that that line is straight, the other tip I have is to not line your letters right up exactly on that line, because if you just float them up a little bit from the line, that gives you a bit of space to come back with your eraser and not have to worry about getting right in to close to those letters with your eraser. So now I'm just shuffling all of these letter stickers over a little tiny bit. And it didn't actually take too long. I think I fussed a little bit more with it the first time, and then by this time I was kind of like, just get them on the page. The V looked a little bit wonky there, so I just had to move it. And when I did that, the tag popped off, and so I just had to add a little bit more. Sorry, I forgot to zoom out, but I just added a little bit more adhesive to that tag using my ATG, and I'm really kind of pressing it down. Sometimes you just have to apply some pressure, and the friction helps the glue in the adhesive just bond to the paper. So here I am going back with my white eraser. I use a Staedtler eraser, and just make sure that you're using a clean side of your eraser. My eraser sometimes gets really, depending on what I've been erasing, especially if I've been using it with mixed media and stuff, it gets pretty stained, and I don't want to, especially on these light colors of paper, I don't want to mess up my paper with ink from my eraser. So it seems like maybe since that I had to do the word Victorian twice, I'm going to have to do the word Christmas twice because I don't know what I was thinking here. I was going to line them up straight the way they were on the wax paper, and then as I did it, I thought, oh, I'll just stagger them a little bit, and that way it won't matter if they're straight, but I really didn't like the look of them being staggered. So I'm going to think about what I'm going to do about that, and while I think I'm going to work on that hashtag do your thing, so I put the pop dots on it so that it would lift on the beginning and end, and then sure enough I decide I'm going to take all these off too and start. What happened was I started by the C was not completely straight in the first place, and then every other letter after that was sort of shifted a little bit tilty towards the side, and so yeah, I went back and I feel better about it. Sometimes I care about those details and sometimes I don't, but this time I did. So it was bugging me, so I fixed it. So I'm thinking about what else this layout might need, and I'm feeling like it's almost finished and I really don't want to add too much. So I'm just going to do some hand journaling, and this is sort of part of the subtitle. It says at Citadel Hill. And then I'm doing my journaling, which says, we saw what Christmas was like for soldiers during World War I and spent lots of time doing Victorian Christmas crafts. And my journaling is not entirely straight, but that's okay. And I'm using the Chamel pen in the gray color that came in a kit. I think maybe last kit or the kit before, sometime this fall anyways. Then I went back and added the date in my own handwriting, just November, and then an apostrophe in 14. So I put some ATG in the middle of that hashtag do your thing embellishment, and it already had the pop dots on either end, so that was fine. I've got this sweater, everything sticks to the sweater, even non-sticky things stick to the sweater, so I had pop dots stuck to my elbow there. Not a pop dot, but the whole sheet of pop dots was stuck. So now these puffy stickers just add such a beautiful tiny little detail. I love that little plus sign right there. It just finishes off that cluster of embellishments. And then I put this other puffy sticker. It says snapshots with a little heart. And then I just wanted to put embellishments in a third little spot, and so just one of the Maggie Holmes gold stickers and then another tiny little puffy sticker. It's just a little arrow with a pink heart on it, and it's black too. So that gives me 3 pops of black besides the photos. The photos have lots of dark in them too. And I'm just going to show you the close-ups of the layout and how it's set up. So I followed the sketch sort of, and kind of used it as a jumping off point more than anything, and I shifted it over to the, kind of shifted it 90 degrees. And so this is the first cluster right here, and then there's this tiny little secondary cluster of do your own thing, and then this little, I mean, it's really just 2 stickers, it's barely a cluster. But when I have such an elaborate cluster, I mean, it's elaborate for me. I don't often kind of pile that much stuff in one place. That kind of bottom right hand corner embellishment is quite elaborate for me. So I like to really show restraint in the other clusters, just so that, you know, your eye goes over there to this cluster that I'm showing right now, and then while it's there, you've got your title and you've got your journaling. Everything is kind of tucked in there by the main embellishment cluster, and then the other 2 clusters just help guide your eye around the layout to make sure that you take a close look at those photos. So thanks so much for having a look, everybody, and have a great scrappy week.